Hello and welcome to We Got Issues, the only comic book podcast that knows how to put the pun into Punisher. I'm Brian Compton, aka BComp, and joining me as always is Josh Mark with the micro trip to my Frank Castle. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm glad we're back to sidekicks instead of
inanimate objects.
Inanimate objects and metaphors.
He's the skull to my uniform.
But speaking of that, though, too, I have something for that. He's the to my John Barenthal Punisher.
That's a good one. Who's your favorite Punisher, if you don't mind me asking? Is it Dolph? Is it John? Is it Ray Stevenson? Is it who's the Tom Jane?
I think the Tom Jane Punisher doesn't get enough of its due credit because it was pretty, and they changed the origin of his story and all that stuff in Miami, the whole John Travolta of it all. But I thought it was a fun movie. It's not great, but it was a fun movie.
I've heard many times that Warzone, that's the Ray Stevenson one, is absolutely outrageous. I have not seen it, but I heard it's outrageous.
That's crazy, go nuts. Let's just say there's parkour dudes that are jumping from, and he shoots one of the parkour dudes in midair with a missile launcher.
Yes, that's exactly what you want in that kind of a movie.
And it has goodness, what's his name? He's the guy. He was one of the detectives in The Wire. He's like McGinty in The Wire.
Okay,
you've never watched The Wire. What was he? Oh, you have? I thought you didn't like it.
I just didn't finish it. I've watched it.
Yeah.
When you got to the school arc with the kids, like it kind of hit me a little bit too close to home. Like I need to take a break from this.
Oh, yeah. The main guy played Jigsaw, and he was just crazy. Like they had the whole facial makeup and stuff. It was just
scars and stuff.
This is batshit crazy. It was kind of. I mean, speaking of what we're going to be talking about today, it seems kind of like an Ennis type of Punisher movie, kind of mixed with that Tom Jane one too, because they took stuff from Ennis,
from that ones,
like with Punisher Coming Home or something like that.
It's Welcome Back, Frank.
Welcome Back, Frank. That's what it is. I'm getting that mixed up with my Spider-Man Coming Home.
It's all good.
So, but with that, because of our pun beginning, and just the intro. Today we're going to be cracking open one of Marvel's most controversial characters. We're talking about the Punisher today. I mean, but specifically though, we wanted to talk about a story that not a lot of people would know about or read, and it's Platoon, which kind of goes into Frank's military career, specifically in Vietnam. So but before we get through all of that, much like every episode so far, which this is number like 14, which is amazing. We've gotten
technically this is number 13. It's the 14th episode, but we're calling it number 13 because of zero episode.
But technically it's 14 because we did but it's a fortnight of episodes. And with that, almost since day one, we've had a sponsor, and even though we've gotten some big names,
we have gotten some big names offers, wanting us to be a part of it. Like we can't use their real names because that would be bad. But it's still things like Cramazon or Fintendo or
Pony. No. Pony? Sony?
I
said their name. Now the contract's out. All right. Ruined the contract.
Well, I was going to say, we prefer to look out for the little guy, those who actually will see benefit from our not insignificant endorsement, which is why we're throwing our
huge endorsement.
We're throwing our not insignificant weight behind these people. Duff and Shaw Snacks. Now, if you've been looking for the best treats this side of the Savage Land, you owe it to yourself and your stomach to snag some of Duff and Shaw's world famous snacks. From Wild Cherry Dogman Gummies to Bigfoot's Smoky Kettle Crunch, these snacks and candy are curated from the most mysterious and undiscovered places on planet Earth. Head over to duffandshaw.com/issues today, not tomorrow, today, and check out all they've got and more. That's duffandshaw.com/issues for the most legendary snacks on the planet.
On the planet. Check out that new sponsor copy. That's right. We're switching it up. That's how crazy we are. But I ordered just some more.
I got bored of reading the same thing over and over. I'll just write up.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all for it. I bet they're all for it too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I ordered some more of their stuff too. It's great. Like that. The Smoky Kettle Crunch is really good.
Oh, nice.
So it's
nice.
Yeah, I think it's a good sponsor for us.
My wife to buy some because I can't afford to right now.
This is how you convince it. You just do it and say, "Oh, did you not remember that you ordered something?
Did you order it with your credit card? You didn't."
Right? Which is weird.
Anyway,
they stole our identity and specifically got some Duff and Shaw snack. That's weird.
Oh,
send it to us. It's some prank. I don't know how it is. Go to the sponsor. It helps the podcast, helps us out, and you'll get good snacks out of it. It's a win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win.
Now, moving on to what we came here to talk about. Recently, the Punisher made his return to the small screen with his appearance in the MCU series Daredevil: Born Again, and we had a request to kind of do a breakdown of the Punisher or a Punisher story, and kind of just what makes him tick. So what we wanted to do is just kind of talk about a specific story that not a lot of people know, and that kind of gives you kind of the origin to the origin of the Punisher, if that makes sense. And
it will after we explain it all.
Oh yeah, for sure. And for people who don't necessarily know who Frank Castle is, Frank Castle. He is the Punisher. He's kind of one of those take no prisoners vigilante in the Marvel universe, who's kind of on death wish on all criminals. That amazing movie Death Wish, which is they try to remake it with Bruce Willis, didn't do so well.
Charles Bronson, baby.
Charles Bronson. And speaking of, have you seen that recut of that trailer for Death Wish, like 3 or something?
Are you talking about the Killing Hipsters?
Yeah, Killing Hipsters. And then
Killing Hipsters. Oh, I quote that thing all the time. Killing Hipsters. Turn down, hipster. No one wants to hear your playlist.
And then one of the guys looked like Brendan Routh. It was crazy.
Well, and then Jeff Goldblum shows up at the end.
Right.
And just when you're expecting Jeff Goldblum.
It is really great.
Hey, man, is that a vintage coat? No, it's a right now coat.
It's so stupid. First of all, go check out that video, but then go watch the Death Wish movies. Those are crazy. I think they're canon, which was part of like those canon movies. Those are all crazy.
Absolute batshit insane.
Yeah. But so, I mean, with that, Frank goes on a Death Wish spree because his family was killed by the mob, and his family was killed because they witnessed something that the mob did, and
the mob hit in the park or something like that.
Yeah, and they drove him over the edge, and he put him on this path of revenge. He's kind of like what he did. He's like the Batman school of revenge, where it's not just criminal, or it's not just the specific people that did wrong to me. It's all of crime and nothing, so nobody else can really feel that pain, but he took it to an extreme. Yeah. And but I mean, he's an older character, so there's been a lot more time and a lot more layers that have been added to the character since then.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And we thought, what a better way to understand the character than to get into his past, specifically his first tour in Vietnam as a Marine lieutenant. Now, there's been some retconning about what that war is. His original origin is tied to the Vietnam War, but because of Marvel's sliding scale, that has changed. We'll get into that in a little bit. For now, do the blurb on the back. Do you want to tackle it, or
let's have you do that one?
Before the Punisher was born in Vietnam, Frank Castle had already become a dark legend on the battlefield. Stories were told about him in whispers, if at all. Now, the legendary creative team of Garth Ennis and Goran Parlov bring the first of these stories to light, the tale of Frank Castle's first command and his first kill. During the Tet Offensive, death surrounded Lieutenant Castle's platoon on all sides. How far would Frank go to protect his men? especially when danger came from the indifference of his commanders. And while Castle was engaged in the grind of war, a kindred spirit on the enemy side watched and waited. It's a seemingly hopeless mission. It's Lieutenant Castle's first platoon. It's the answer to the question, what made the Punisher?
Very nice. Very nice. So this was published as a 6-issue miniseries, and the first issue hit stores in December of 2017. It's basically Frank Castle's first tour of duty in Vietnam and what he did to keep his men alive, really, and kind of learned what's going on in the war. And now, before we get too far ahead, because there's a lot to break down and kind of contextualize before we get into this issue, how did you read this series, Brian? Now, was this singles, trades, follow? Did you get it when it came out? I'm guessing you probably got it when it came out, or did you?
I got it in singles as it came out, and read it month to month basically. And I've since obviously picked up the trade. It's not like it's just a simple trade paperback. There's no like collected like hardcover all encompassing edition, but there is a trade of it, which I do read kind of on the reg, because not to spoil too much, but like this is one of my favorite stories. This is legitimately one of my favorite Punisher stories.
That's a huge spoiler.
Yeah, huge spoiler. I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, honestly, for the most part, we're always going to do stories we like, and I know that this is my favorite story. Marvel's is my favorite. No, Born Again's my favorite.
Right.
Like we say that every single time, but it's true. Like,
I know.
Why would I want to talk about poop? Let's talk about dessert. Let's talk about something good. And this, for me, is one of my favorite Frank Castle stories. It distills the character away from all the white skull and bullshit that comes along with that and all that, and it's just like, here's the man Frank Castle in his purest form. So I really do enjoy this story. But what about you, man?
I just recently read this because I've heard about it. I've seen kind of the covers more about heard about Born and then Platoon, but this was the first time that I really read it, and I liked this story as well, like a lot. I liked how the Punisher is portrayed in this one. It's funny enough. It was he's a more of a what I'm trying to say, a reserved Punisher.
Yeah. Yes.
What's funny enough, in a more reserved and a story.
Yeah.
Right? It's Garth Ennis and the Punisher both in this story were more reserved than they normally are.
And I think that's one of the reasons I think it works. This is a war comic, ultimately. This isn't a Punisher comic. This is a war comic, and what men do to survive in war, and how that the brotherhoods of bond, the bonds of brotherhood that that find themselves in these situations.
Do you know what I really liked about this story too? What I really liked about this, it was only the Punisher. There was no villain that popped up out of nowhere. There were no Easter eggs about Nick Fury wasn't in it at all. There wasn't any kind of hints to anybody else. There's no Jigsaw. It was just a Punisher story, and I liked that.
It wasn't even a Punisher story. It was a Frank Castle story.
Right. Frank Castle story. But that's what I mean, though. There was no like wink, wink, nudge, nudges like. Oh, this guy's gonna be Dr. Fear.
Oh, this is the guy who kills his family later on down the road.
Right.
Oh, this is the guy who's gonna give him the drugs that F's up his head that when he goes after Spider-Man or something like that.
Right. Yeah, this is not the Jackal.
Yeah, exactly. Or Jigsaw or any or Barracuda or whoever, whatever. There's a reason for that, but I agree with you. It was ultimately just a Frank Castle story, and a Frank Castle story done well. What do you think? Just before we get too far off topic, what is your take just on the Punisher himself? Like, do you like him as a character, or are you one of those people? I know there's a lot of controversy with the skull and all the sort of like the misappropriation of it. I mean, and it is misappropriation. But what do you think of him as a character in general?
He's a hard character to be full force behind because himself is
he's a murderer. He's a serial killer.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people don't think he's a hero because he kills people. It's hard for people to get their mind around that, or just because he kills everybody willy-nilly. I mean, it's more it's more accepted now with more of the characters like like Deadpool, Wolverine, things like that. But at the time when Joe, well, he's not a hero.
No, it's true though. I mean, like, yeah.
But with the Punisher though, it like back a little bit back then, it was way harder to get people's minds around it. I think more like the 90s were kind of going crazy with how he was untethered and everything, and just he's the killing Batman basically.
I grew up in the 90s when Punisher was at his biggest. In fact, one of my first big issues I ever got was Punisher #1. I remember because it's like great cover of him literally swinging Tarzan style into an apartment building with a rocket launcher on his shoulder, about to just demolish like a room full of drug dealers. And you're just like, cool. Like, was that your plan? Like, you're gonna fire that thing at point blank range? I don't think you're gonna survive that. Cool cover though. Yeah, rocket jump. It's gonna blow back. Someone did like an essay breakdown where they actually met with an explosives expert. Like, what would happen if this happened?
Oh wow!
Like, it's like it's an essay. I have it in one of my books. It's great. And I, like all kids, like, this is cool. It's so edgy, and it's. I mean, like, he was cool at the time. I mean, this just dude in black with a white skull kicks ass. Like, that's awesome. I kind of equate him. I just kind of said it, but like, I kind of equate him a little bit, this version of it, to like Joker or to Carnage, where it's like that. They might be interesting characters, but we shouldn't be emulating them. We shouldn't be like glorifying them. They are interesting characters to read about, and we've got to put them in situations and see where they go. I have a little bit of leniency when it comes to the Punisher, just because of my own personal, like, I do enjoy him. I enjoy reading him. But I do think, and this is where it's going to get interesting, that there is two different versions of the Punisher. You have the Marvel Universe 616 Punisher, and then you have this Punisher, which is Punisher Max, and they're two different ones. The Punisher of the Marvel Universe, while they are both essentially serial killers, it's played more like he's a serial killer. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like going nuts, killing people. Whereas this one is a much more like man with a mission, but we can get into that in a little bit. I hate to say it,
treated though too in the 616 version as more of a serial killer, and the Max one not as much, like more leniency, I think, like from other heroes.
Well, because like the vigilante, because in the Punisher Max, heroes basically don't exist. They're not real. I think like they finally, when Jason Aaron did a run, like the final run, I think Bullseye and Kingpin show up maybe, but like other than that, there's no Spider-Man. It's just, but we can talk about that in a second. So let's talk a little bit about the Punisher's origins, then we'll kind of get into like all of this. As we'd mentioned, like, he showed up in 1974 in Amazing Spider-Man 129. He was originally an assassin hired by the Jackal to kill Spider-Man.
The Jackal. Now, the Jackal has a very important part of one of your favorite stories.
The best part. Spider Clone Saga, baby. Eventually we're gonna break all that down. That's a
I thought we said we don't want to talk about poop.
No, but a cherry on it.
Cherry on the poop.
I don't know. I'm just trying to get myself through it. I have no idea.
That'd be a fun one to go.
Oh, that'd be because here's the thing. I said I was gonna do books I liked. I didn't say they were good books necessarily. I just said they're books I like.
No way.
Oh man. Well, anyway, so he shows up a bunch throughout Marvel history. He shows up as Spider-Man. He shows up here and there. Like, I don't want to say like against Luke Cage or whatever. And eventually, he kind of makes one of his big coming out parties though is when he shows up in Daredevil, care of Frank Miller, and that kind of establishes their dynamic moving forward. And this is like right in the height of Frank Miller's Daredevil. He's drawing and writing the book. Elektra literally just dies. The Punisher shows up. He's like, yo, you like beating up criminals? I like killing them. Let's team up. And, like Daredevil, Matt Murdock's like, nah, I'm cool, bro. You're crazy. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Even Frank Miller at the time was like, yeah, he's a fun character, right? But like, people shouldn't glorify this guy. He's a killer. You know what I mean?
That's Frank Miller saying there.
Well, who's quoted as saying, I would be fine with killing killer criminals on the spot. You know what I mean?
Right. And they used a lot of that story in the second season of Daredevil too, right? That when they introduced him into the MCU.
You would know better than I. I kind of checked out at that point on the MCU stuff. Or at least that the Barenthal of it all. And it wasn't like Barenthal was bad. I actually like him a lot as an actor. I just just didn't care, by that point, because it was like the Defenders did not do anything for me, and I don't know.
That one, I wouldn't judge the Netflix MCU on the
show?
on the Defenders. That one was that or Iron Fist, because those. Well, okay, quick tangent. In Defenders, you have Daredevil beating Iron Fist in hand-to-hand fight when they first meet. That is just nuts to me. When Iron Fist is supposed to be one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in all of comics.
Technically, though, doesn't Daredevil beat Iron Fist in Contest of Champions? But now keep in mind, he does pick up a snowball and throw it in his face.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Daredevil's a bare knuckle boxer, or bare knuckle brawler, and Iron Fist is literally the Iron Fist living weapon.
But yeah, it's only but he's supposed to be one of the best hand to hand like martial artists.
Yeah, he's great.
Like him or
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi. That's usually Shang-Chi is seen as better hand to hand, but he's either the close second or arguably even better. But you have Daredevil wiping the floor with him.
That's not cool.
It's kind of like, ooh, well, it's and let's not even get to how the Iron Fist show was so bad and so quickly put together. That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. Well, anyway, speaking of things that I think, let's talk about things that were popular, namely Frank Castle in the 90s. I mean, like, basically coming out of that, Punisher's hot. I mean, he gets his own limited series in 1985. It's like a 5-issue mini. Then from there, that gets spun off into that Punisher one with that rocket launcher one that I was talking about earlier. That spins off. You got Punisher at that point. Then it's Punisher War Journal, who like Jim Lee is doing the art for. Then you got Punisher Warzone. Then you got Punisher Armory. There's also like a magazine at the time, Punisher Magazine, which is just reprinting a bunch of stuff. So like there's like 4 to 5 books going on in the 90s. That's how hot the Punisher was. I mean, that's some X-Men level shit right there. That's more than Spider-Man almost.
I was about to say, yeah, that's X-Men level, or even like Spider-Man at the time level.
Spider-Man had 4. Well, Spider-Man had 5. I mean, at his peak. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's insane. And of course, all good things come to an end. And eventually the heat on the Punisher just dies off. And Marvel just like cancels all the books. And they're like, cool, we're just going to do one book. It's going to be called The Punisher, and it's going to be him not killing criminals. He'll be a crime boss. I'm not kidding when I say that. He's literally like the Don Castle. Like,
what is he? He lived long enough for people to see him become the villain. What's the quote?
It's like, you live long enough to see. We know.
You know what I'm talking about? Batman, Dark Knight.
Yeah. Literally, he becomes like Don Castiglione. Like, he becomes like a Don, and like in front of, like, I'm not kidding. Well, then Marvel realizes, like, well, that was a bad take, and so they relaunch him again. This time, they relaunch him in a 4-issue miniseries where he commits suicide. Angels come down, bring him back up, and they give him angel guns, and they're like, cool, you're going to work for God now, and you're going to kill criminals with angel hellfire guns.
They turned him into Spawn.
Literally. He's got the same code. He's got and then that was so poorly received. They did one more miniseries out of that. It was part of the Marvel Knights.
Poorly received. That's crazy to me.
Well, it's crazy because it was part of that Marvel Knights initiative when Joe Quesada kind of took over. So like you got Black Panther by Christopher Priest, you got Daredevil with Kevin Smith, you've got Inhumans with Jay Lee and Paul Jenkins.
Spider-Man Mark.
No, that wasn't yet. That was later on. That was part of the later. That was the next initiative. But the initial run was like 4 titles, and then you got Punisher, and they did another one where it's like a Wolverine Punisher team up, and like they're all, this isn't working. Fans are not on board, and so they decide. Enter here Garth Ennis, who comes in with his longtime Preacher co-creator Steve Dillon, and they're going to relaunch Punisher, and that's where we talked about earlier, that 12-issue miniseries, Welcome Back, Frank. And it's a back to basics approach where it's just the Punisher kicking ass, taking names. And literally, it's just like they're like, I got sent up to heaven. Angels told me what I could do. They like literally like show him where his family is. This is what you could have. You work for. He's like, didn't care for it. I told him where they could stick it, and he like goes and throws a guy off a building right there. You know what I mean? Like, it's over the top and silly and fun. It's like, oh, this is, it's funny, just getting back to the basics, like I said. And that success led to another 37 issues. Like Garth wrote about 30 of them. of Marvel Knights Punisher, and it's essentially just like a Wile E. Coyote, like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. It's like just like insane stuff. I mean, anybody who's like read his Hitman would know it's like that. It's that kind of vibe. If you've read Hitman, right? Yeah. And so like that's the book where it's just like he has such disdain for heroes. Like he runs over like Wolverine with like a steamroller, you know.
Oh right, yeah. Did he do something with like piranhas or something? Or no, he shot him in the face with a shotgun. That's what it was.
Face. So, yeah, so it was just adamantium face, or skull. Yeah. So it's essentially just Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. This kind of came to an end. I've met mixed reports. Some say it was like after 9/11, he was like, I don't really see the humor in this anymore. Or he could have just been like, I don't want to do superheroes being shoved into this anymore. And so that's when Punisher Max comes out. And that's the adult hardline Punisher where they drop F-bombs and they get into real, and I mean, they drop F-bombs, N-bombs. I mean, it gets real. It's a very real book. People are getting killed. Like, you know, there's a lot of like adult themes running in these books. And this is where it kind of separates itself from the MC or from the Marvel universe. It becomes its own Earth, and it's like specifically Earth 200-111 or 200-111. And it's a hard edge book, you know.
How do they choose the numbers?
That I don't know.
You don't know?
616. Yeah, I don't know that one. Usually I'm sure it's just like, hey, let's put in a number. That looks good to me.
Because that one's just a lot of numbers for that one. So Tim Bradstreet was doing the covers for Max, right? Like around this time, or is it even before?
Even before. He went all the way back to Welcome Back, Frank, all the Marvel Knights stuff. I'm 90%, 99% sure. I think there's like a Steve Dillon cover in there, like as a variant, but overall, like it's all the way through the Welcome Back, Frank, into Marvel Knights, into the Punisher Max.
Those are really good covers too. You could like throw a dart and hit a good cover. There's a lot of good ones.
There's beautiful. If you like those, check out the Hellblazer stuff. I think
the Hellblazer stuff is great.
That was really great too. Yeah, and so the big difference, though, besides it being a mature book, Punisher Max is a mature book, obviously without superheroes in this book. The only other kind of main Marvel at this point is Nick Fury. He's a through line with Frank Castle and all of this. The real big difference is that Frank ages as we age. So the Vietnam War happened, and then, you know, he is now like 70 years old or 60, whatever age he would be in 2000s at this point. So it's like, this is the Vietnam War. As we had mentioned earlier, like originally when Punisher was written, he was in the Vietnam War, but as you know about the Marvel sliding scale kind of thing, like,
right.
Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, it's like, yeah, originally, you know, the Fantastic Four, the book debuted in 1961, and it was the space race. Who's going to get to, you know, to the moon first, or who's going to get into outer space first? You know, obviously, you know, since 1961, that's like what, 60, I can't even do the math right. It's 60 years has passed since that moment. So the Fantastic Four can be 80 years old. So what Marvel does is what's called the sliding scale, where they basically stretch out the time behind us. And it's like everything kind of took place about 15 years or 10 years behind us. The problem is the Vietnam War that took place in the 60s as well, in the late, the 60s and 70s. So it's like, well, that doesn't work anymore. You can't have like 30-year-old Frank Castle kicking ass or 40-year-old Frank Castle kicking ass if the event took place 60 years earlier. So what they did in the Marvel universe, and this is actually Mark Waid who did this in the history of the Marvel universe, it's a book that came out a couple years back, is they retconned that the Vietnam War happened, but there was another war called the Sian Kong War, and that is essentially where Frank Castle became the Punisher in the Marvel universe.
So, you know, we made up a war just to help Frank Castle be
not just Frank Castle,
continuity.
James Rhodes, a few other people. Gotcha. But that's a floating war that can just kind of that happened 15 years behind us, you know. So that could be like where Tony Stark, you know, he got blown up by.
I was about to say, yeah, exactly. But they also retconned him to like for
Afghanistan, Afghanistan. But they now can just use that. Oh, that's that war that where all our heroes were involved with. It was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So yeah, in this version of the Punisher Max, like I said, he's essentially he's not an old man, but he's got some years behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you had mentioned Punisher Born earlier.
Right.
Have you read Punisher Born?
I read it for this mainly, and yeah, it was a 4-issue miniseries, and it's kind of now for when I was trying to figure out where does this kind of fit in this, like, is this before Platoon or is this after Platoon?
This is after. So the way it works is in Platoon, Frank Castle was drafted. He goes. You don't see it, but it's all the precursor. But he's drafted. He goes to Vietnam, and he is given command of this platoon. It's his first tour of duty. There's a second tour of duty, which he goes Marine Recon. Basically, he does special forces, special ops, stuff like that, like wet work, stuff like that. You only see like 1 or 2 stories from that era, and that's when he like saves Nick Fury, who's been captured, and he saves a few other people. And then the final arc Born is his third tour of duty, and that's when he goes home. That's after shit hits the fan for him, and that's essentially where he has to go to a very, very dark place to stay alive. Yeah. One of the questions I kind of, and that's at Valley Forge. That's at Valley Forge. You know, one of the questions like, why didn't we do Born versus Platoon? I have a reason for it. Do you want to kind of tackle it? I'd like to hear what your thoughts were, or do you really?
Just base is just Platoon is better. I think Born was a little bit too Garth Ennis, if that makes, like, it's more Ennis-y than Platoon was. I liked it was very much more crass, and it was very much more it was the same artist as The Boys too, so it was very The Boys.
Derek Robertson.
Yeah.
So
I thought Platoon was better.
100% agree with you. I think that, again, Bourne felt, again, it's that early Ennis where he was still kind of being silly and kind of goofy and all that kind of stuff at times. There's some really good elements in it, but like overall, it does have that vibe. I thought Platoon was much more of a mature story. It's much more of a war story. It's much more about this man who's like coming to terms with everything. Whereas Bourne, it felt to me like Bourne, like he was already there. He was already the Punisher. I know that they said that's when the Punisher was born, but it's like you kind of get that vibe. He's already there. He's been that for a while. Whereas like this is where he's on the edge. He's like, is he going to go one way or the other? You know, you could very much make this like a what if he didn't, do that? And this is where he came out. Like I wrote in my notes, like this version of Frank Castle in the Platoon is like who could have become Captain America. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a heroic figure, but he's a good man. You know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, from start to finish of it, he's making the right choices. He's not overboarding. He's actually, like I said before, he's being more reserved, but keeping his men reserved too.
Yeah.
He's not going all out all the time.
I know I've said this before. I love this version of him. Like I legitimately love this version of him. And that's one of the reasons like I do reread this on a semi-regular basis. It's a quick read, but anyway, let's get in the creative team real quick. Do you want to tackle your boy Garth?
Yeah, my boy Garth Ennis. So a lot of people, and I think I would put him up there too. He's really considered like the Punisher writer because he's had such a long base with him, and my boy is an Irish writer he's an Irish writer, and he's really well known for books like Preacher, Hitman, The Boys, Hellblazer, and a lot of other war comics and stories. Yeah. There was that Crossed one.
Yeah, that's like that zombie one.
Nuts. It's like a mix of zombie and such thing. And he's doing like a fantasy one now too. Yeah. And he can go to those weird, crazy batshit places. Like think about if you watch The Boys but haven't read the book. The Boys, the book is way more crazier and way more unhinged than the show is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Same thing with Preacher. Even Preacher was pretty well adapted. It still was not as nutso as the book, which that's give you an idea of his writing. Like you can't go to those places in the shows, even like a show like on Prime or something.
Yeah, I mean, Garth Ennis was like I kind of regard him as like, do you remember the first time you like watched like a Quentin Tarantino movie? Like for the first time, you're like, I don't know, like for me, like I was in high school and I was like, oh my god, movies can do this. Like I remember watching Pulp Fiction for the first time. I was like, what the,
Mm-hmm.
holy hell! Like this is
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. That was Garth Ennis for me. Like it was like watching Pulp Fiction. It was like reading Pulp Fiction, like for the first time. Like when I read Preacher, I was like, this is, comics can do this. Like this is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've always had a reverence for him in that regard. Like, and so I've said before, sometimes he gets silly, and it's just like, dude, don't do that. Like, when you write mature stuff with, it can have like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, nod every once in a while. But overall, like when he stays mature, he is such a good writer. He is such a good writer.
Yeah.
And like you said to your point with the boys, like I think the show is a better adaptation than the book is.
I think so. It's more reserved. I keep saying the reserved, but it's like the choice word right now.
True. Well, and that's the thing is like, he has made it very clear he does not like superheroes. He thinks they're silly, he thinks they're dumb. And that's him taking out all that stuff in the boys, is him just taking that to the nth degree. That's why, and there's a few exceptions. Like if you ever read Hitman, he makes fun of like Green Lantern and all those guys. But the one issue that I think he won the Eisner for it. The one issue that like he has reverence for is Superman, and what Superman stands for.
Oh yeah.
And it's a Superman issue, and it's phenomenal. And again, it's sad and real, and that's why it's like when he writes mature stuff, man, he can't do any wrong. He really can't. But when he doesn't, whatever.
On the whole, I really like The Boys as like as a entirety type of book.
The book.
Yeah, the books. And it's batshit nuts and it's crazy. There's a lot of moments where I'm just like, come on, really? Same thing with Preacher. Yeah. Like there's some stuff where I'm like, come on, really? But Preacher as a whole is amazing. And Hitman is great. Hellblazer is great too. So I mean, it's just, what's the best way to, I think Tarantino is a great reference. There's some on the whole, and as a general, like if you look at it macro or holistically, like these stories are great, but if you kind of go micro and look more in details, you're just like, like there's a lot of moments.
There's just things that just kind of just like, they're a little cringe, and I don't mean like in that like ooh cringe like The Office, like cringe like, oh that doesn't make me feel good right now. Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. I have very little reservations when it comes to Preacher. Like there's a few things here and there, but overall, like that was like my big like coming out book, like from superhero comics into like adult comics. Like a lot of people, a lot of people, it's the Sandman. Like, and I get it. Like you like the Sandman, the Neil Gaiman aside, like I get like where you realize that was like, or the Watchmen. It was like, this is where people realize like comics could be so much more than just a bunch of dudes in tights hitting each other. For me, that book is Preacher. Like it really is. And so I will always kind of defend it a little bit, or at least be like, yeah, I hear you, but not gonna like it. You know what I mean? I will say, like, I think Hitman ultimately, I think is a better book in some ways, or at least the ending is. I think it's because he had to kind of play within those guardrails and it made him like a little bit better. But I digress. I again, I really do love when he's writing maturely. Great. When he's not, I'm like you said, The Boys on a macro level, really entertaining. You get into some like those specific moments, it's like, oh, dude,
yeah.
Someone should. I mean, there's a reason DC canceled the book at issue 6. They're like, we're done here, and Dynamite picked it up for issue 7 through like 80 or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like DC's like, or it was Wildstorm. Technically, they're like, we're good. We're not going to do this anymore.
A little too much for Wildstorm.
Yeah, exactly. But besides, obviously, this isn't a one-person affair. There has to be an artist involved. Let's talk a little bit about the artist for the book. His name is Goran Parlov. Basically, he's a Croatian artist who worked with Garth Ennis on basically a lot of his Max stuff. He worked on Fury with him. He worked on Punisher. And then some of the Punisher Max stuff he worked was like the Barracuda arc. Most of I think all the Barracuda stuff actually, as well as the finale of Punisher Max.
Very nice. Oh no, I was gonna just sing the Barracuda song, but just don't
do that. We'll get taken down.
Yeah, like they're really like searching for me to do it. Yeah, funny, like funny backstory. My dad helped move, I think, like pianos or something. He was like a semi roadie for Heart for a little bit.
No
When they were in
kidding.
Seattle, yeah. So it's
That's
kind of
so
like
cool.
so it's a little connection there.
It's my wife's
Because
ringtone actually for her.
oh, nice.
Not that we don't use ringtones anymore, but like, so everything's on silent.
Right.
That's cool. With Parlov, again, I'm gonna come out and just be honest. Like, I really, really love his art style. That said, he's known for his softer lines and almost like a kind of a caricature-esque style to his art, which has made him a very polarizing artist within the Punisher fan community. Like, I went into it, I was like, oh, I'll read the forums. Like, of course, I like it. Everyone else is like, holy hell, man. It is either you love his art or you are like, F this guy. People are like, I do not like it. It's like, it looks silly, blah, blah, blah. There's like a lack of hyper realism in, I don't know. What was your take on his art?
No, I really like his art too. His art is a lot in that vein of like was it Evan Shaner, Doc Shaner? Yeah. Or even a lot of the other stuff, like the current Spider-Man book, or Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, like that type of art. Almost like a stylized version of a kind of like Darwin Cook's art a little bit.
Yeah, he's got those nice thick jaws, like the cleft chin, but it's like, and they're big characters, but they're thin characters. And like I said, they border on caricaturesque, but I think it fits the book. I think there's a weight to everybody. There's a sound to everybody. It's like, we talk about, we talk about that. Like, their kinetic energy is kind of hard to convey on the page because it's a single panel and you're trying to convey movement. Like, I also think there's like, with his book, there's almost like a sound quality to it. It's like, you see someone get, like, you see one point, he just like jacks someone in the throat, like with a karate chop. And it's like, oh, you heard, like, and there's not like a, sound effect, but it's like, you heard it in the image. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't need the onomatopoeia for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just like to say onomatopoeia too.
That's a good one. It's good. It's also a Green Arrow villain. I love that what's that? Yeah, Kevin Smith. That's right. Him and Phil Hester. I love that he draws Frank like a fucking brick shit house.
Yeah.
Dude it's like, and even in like later on in the Punisher Max series, when he does a couple arcs, like, yeah, Frank is a big dude. He's a big dude, and there's a reason this guy can jack you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's supposed to be intimidating. He's supposed to be. I mean, he's a guy who's been training for a while, and or even in the army in the war, so he's supposed to be a bigger guy. Like he commands loyalty and also fear. So
yes, yeah, that's great. So I understand why some people don't like him. I do. I absolutely love it. When it was always a delight. Like I said, I went through and reread all of the Punisher Max stuff after I read Platoon, just to do it. And I was like, whenever I would see, and there's a lot of great artists in that run. Don't get me wrong, but I was always like, oh yeah, it's a Goran issue. Great. Let's see what's going to happen here. I mean, anyway, so let's talk about the main book. How about we do the book we're actually here to talk about?
Hey, we got the creator out of the way. We got the characters out of the way. So let's do issue 1. So issue 1, we talk about, it starts with Michael Goodwin, the writer of Valley Forge. Valley Forge. Yeah, Valley Forge. And brother of one of Captain Castle's men at Valley Forge. And he interviews them in Frank's first platoon. And he kind of says it kind of the best way is like, Goodwin wrote the ending but never wrote the story.
Yeah.
So and Frank is there. Frank shows this is kind of Frank's first day with the platoon. He shows up, there to learn and to keep his men alive, which I really like that kind of that side, or just in general of a character showing up like that, because usually you always get they know everything, or they know what's going on. He's just like, hey, look, this is my first day. I'm here to learn. I'm going to give you my expertise where I can, but you guys have been here and you guys know everything that's going on, and kind of the lay of the land, but also the lay of the platoon. So I'm I'm gonna go off your lead for a little bit until I get my bearings, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, he just knows that they know more than like you just said. And then he calls. There's a point where he calls it an airstrike rather than risk his men. And yeah, I mean, you kind of don't know when he's going to become Punisher yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. Like you just said, it's him asking the right questions, listening to his people, and you can tell already they're like, okay, this guy isn't full of shit. He was smart enough not like. There's like one of the things like he was smart enough not to wear his officer bars. When he was out in the field, because, and it's funny, there's actually in a Preacher book they talk about that, where it's like, oh, you wear those bars and you become instant like sniper cannon fodder. You know what I mean? Like snipers are looking for those or they're called butter bars. To like take you out. He knew instantly not to wear those when you're in the field. Didn't make everybody stand up and salute him or call him, sir. It's like there was like
remember that in Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
he first meets Lieutenant Dan. He's like, don't salute me out here.
Yeah, give me kill. Yeah, and I love that he's just like, hey, we got to take this village, and like his sergeant's like, he's like, what? He's like, if you don't, he's like, what? He's like, I shouldn't say. If you don't tell me what's going on, I can't help you. And he's like, okay, well, here's the down low. Like they say it's clear, but they actually haven't cleared it. I know for a fact that they haven't. He's like, okay, cool. Hey, call in an airstrike. And like, what? You're doing that on your first day? He's like, yeah. And lo and behold, there were snipers in there that they took out,
Yeah, he's making the calls, like we said, to keep his men safe, but also he knows when to listen, but also when not to follow orders, because it's he's there for his men and to get them to they're on short, so like when trying to get them back home.
Yeah, because they got like a lot of them have like 30 days, 15 days, 30 days, whatever it is to get home, and so he's there to keep them alive. It's this missile strike that he calls in, almost takes out one of the other side characters of the book. It's this a female soldier on the Vietnamese side called Sister Lee, and she has it out for this guy. This big dude, the big American as she calls him. She was like, I was going to take him out, but then I hear the missiles come in and I booked it out of there. And that's also where we meet. We're also introduced to her boss, Colonel Le Trong Giap, who actually is introduced in the Fury book previously that Garth Ennis had done a couple of years prior. It's called My War Gone By. So this is like, you're talking about like Easter eggs. Like it's not necessarily an Easter egg, but it's in the continuity that Garth Ennis has kind of created. So this is a character that Fury had run into. And you actually do run into Punisher in that one. And that's during his second tour where he's like helping Frank or helping Fury out. But anyway, I digress.
I really liked the character. He was.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of those reserved. He's on the opposite end of Frank. Like he's mainly watching, learning, and making smart choices.
Well, he's learned that it's war and it's going to be long, and we have to think smart about this, and that you can't take it personal. And that's what he's trying to like. His whole arc is trying to teach Sister Lee, like, you can't make it personal. You've got to look at the long term. You've got to, if you're just going to be a bullet, we can waste you right now, but you're too good to be a bullet. You're too smart. You're too clever. Like learn. He's trying to teach her, but she's, as we find out, is blinded by rage as the issues go on,
for kind of almost good reason too.
Oh, absolutely good reasons. It's absolutely justified, good reasons. It's just, it's totally justified. It is interesting though, her parallel with Revenge versus like Frank Castle's parallel with Revenge, how like they're both driven by that, but well, we can talk about it a little bit. Let's get into issue 2 though. Let's get into issue 2.
So in issue 2, the Vietnamese attack and it goes really to hell really quickly.
Real quickly.
Yeah. And they were wondering what he would be like when the pressure is on, and they also see that very quickly. And we see how soldiers all dealt with the insanity. Like one machine gunner just laughing, like he's reloading the gun.
He's feeding the belt into the heavy, the M60, and he's like just like giggling and laughing, and they're like, he's giddy, and they're like, it wasn't because he was crazy or that he enjoyed killing him. She's like, that was how he dealt with he just laughed his ass off, and he's like, he kept the belt coming in though. He didn't ever have a jam on his gun, you know, but it was just, and it's funny, I kind of know that feeling sometimes, like where you just get like so like worked up, you're like, you don't know how to like respond to something, you just start laughing. I get
outlet,
that.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, exactly.
You need some type of outlet. Yeah. And then we get Frank's first kill, and it's in the dark. It's just a nameless face, and it's not some big moment, some big save or anything.
I loved that it was just that. It was just like, it's like the first person he killed, he doesn't even know who it was. It wasn't like this like momentous moment that they build up. Here's the first time he kills him. It's like, nope, there's a bunch of people, he's just firing into the dark. It was some nameless face.
Could have easily been Sister Lee at the end of the whole story or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got to put on some bayonets.
Like, I love that the soldiers when they like the Viet Cong are like rushing them, and they're like just everywhere, and it's like, it's the one command you don't want to hear: fix bayonets, which is like, get your sword, get those knives on your guns, because it's now hand-to-hand combat, you know. And it's funny, they even say, it's like, but he understood, he knew what war was and what it was going to be. I just love that. I just like, fix bayonets. You're just like, you don't want to hear that.
No,
it's come to it.
That means you have no ammo and your guns are not working anymore. There's too many people.
Too many people.
Yeah, and then they go and retake the machine gun nest. And then it just kind of turns a little bit of the tide there.
That machine gun nest is great because, like, it's like, this is why this is a war comic. It's like, it explains to us, like, it's like when we found out they took the machine gun nest, it's like, it would turn your blood to wet shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, they were like, if they turned that gun on them, they were toast. And you just see Frank, because the guns aren't working, he just pulls out his 45 and just bum rushes
goes at it. Yeah. That's the issue. That's the issue where he does the throat chop too to the guy.
Yeah, he does the throat chop, exactly.
Yeah,
Gluck. I love that. Like the first guy pops his head up right in front of the thing, just
right. Exactly.
There's a headless body just right there,
and just the look in his face too. He's just like, drop as many as you can. It was just like, he wasn't crazy, but he's rose to the occasion for them.
Yeah, it's such a it's a good action issue, if nothing else. Like, just from a purely, like I said, war issue.
There's a couple pages too. There's a couple pages too. There was no dialogue. It's just him, like, that bum rush. So that's right. Yeah.
That's what I said. That's what why I like the book, is it's a war book. It's the realities of war. And I even think there's a point where they talk about it, like, after everything was said and done, they're like, you know, we could justify it that it was us versus them, or they would have done the same thing to us. At the end of the day, we were just killing these kids. You know, we were killing them, they were killing us. What was the point? You know? And that's what I really do enjoy about the book, is it, like, gets to the heart of the matter. Like, why were you even there? What were we doing?
They said that the colonel was just like, Vietnamese are fighting for the country. Americans don't know who they're fighting for.
Exactly.
It's a good issue.
It's a good issue. But that leads us into issue 3, where again they repel another attack, but just by the skin of their teeth, and they realize the weapons they have, their M16s, suck. Big time.
Yeah, they keep jamming, and they just keep and because they keep getting wet too, so that's the big problem. And then
they're self-cleaning though.
Right, exactly, which it was hilarious. And the desperation, in that desperation, they take a little trip to get resupplied with some of the previous weapons, the M14s. And they also warns the supplier to keep the heroin out of his base. So he kind of is like looking out for his men there. It's like, because that was a big thing. Yeah,
I love that look too. He's like, I hear that there's heroin being supplied. Keep it out of 818. And just like he has those eyes. He just stares at him and just like, yes, sir.
Again, Frank is a man of very few words in this whole book, which gives that gravitas to it. And
that weight.
And that heroin stuff kind of plays a bigger part in Bourne as well.
Yep. Yeah. It's nice though that, you know, like they acknowledge it again. Like, even like the stuff with the M16, I had heard, you know, like my dad had buddies that were in Vietnam and all that, and you know, I heard like,
I had an uncle who died in Vietnam.
Oh shit, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
dude.
No, yeah, it was. So
Yeah, so it's just like it's interesting to like kind of get that perspective because again, these are Garth Ennis. He's a historian when it comes to all this, whether it's World War II, Vietnam, Korea. The guy like is a historian, whether it's naval combat, aerial combat, men on the ground, tank units. So it feels almost like in a weird way like you're getting like almost like a Ken Burns documentary, kind of attached to all of this. You know what I mean? Like it's just cool and it's interesting. Like how like just the things they're talking about, like with the M16s, like yeah, the ammo's so garbage. Like we've literally seen it bounce off leaves. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we need better weapons, and that's what leads them to get the M14s.
Yeah, and of course these M14s work much better, and kind of a little dig at the Industrial War dig at the Industrial War complex, and
which real quick to that. So in the Punisher book, the actual Punisher Max book, the last storyline is called Valley Forge, and it's about like the repercussions of Bourne and like what and it's Goran Parlov did the art for it, but there's a nice essay at the end where Garth Ennis talks about Vietnam and how effed it was and like why we went there and what was the anyway. If you're looking for more of a follow-up to all of that, do yourself a favor, check out the essay he wrote at the it's not even an essay, it's like it's like a page long, maybe a page or two, where he just talks about just like we weren't supposed to be there, what was the point. It's interesting. So
gotcha. Yeah, I'll have to check that out too.
Which kind of leads us into the next issue, actually.
Yeah. So at issue 4, the team gets a little bit of an R&R, and they drink away ladies of the night, and kind of being soldiers on a little bit of a rest on leave. And we get a quiet moment though with Frank, and he talks to his sergeant about what they're doing and why they're there, and he mentions his wife and kid back home, but he was drafted and his test kind of pushed him into officer training, and he got some good advice from one of his training officers: find someone who's got their shit put away and do as they do. So I like that little moment in the back of the bar where everybody's having the time of their life, and he and his basically his number 2 are just sitting in the back and just kind of being babysitters and sharing beer and being babysitters.
It's like one of the few times you see Frank actually drink, because even in the Punisher comic, he never really drinks. It's always like a club soda or a coffee or something like that, because he's got to stay. You see him actually relax. Yeah, exactly. You see him relax. You see him share a photo of his wife and his kid, and he's just like, yeah, man. And I love when he's talking about that. He's like, you know what? When I talk to my commanding officers, like, I understand like the goal of like this is to take this hill, but what is the actual goal of the war? Why are we here? And no one could give him a direct answer. And he says, but because I'm an officer, I'm responsible for my men, and that is he makes that his mission. At that was like, if I don't understand the war, fine, but what I can wrap my head around is how do I keep my men alive? That's my duty, is to keep them alive and get them all back home.
There's the thing with Frank too, like if he's given a mission, he is going to see it to the end. Now the Punisher mission is a very big, wide, and never-ending mission, but it's a mission. So that's what this is. His mission is to keep his men alive as much as he can.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, Well, we'll get into that in a second. I do love the scene that in that same scene where they're in the bar, all these men are in the bar, and a bunch of Green Berets basically confront his men. They're basically calling them out. You Marines are, cowards. Like, you got a bunch of my people killed, and not only that, you got civilians killed, and they're going to take it out on these Marines, even though it wasn't these Marines specifically.
Yeah, it wasn't these guys.
It's just the Marines. Yeah, and like they decide to kind of go at it, and I love that Frank just like walks up and is like, "You need to stop," and like you just see his size come. Yeah, you need to sleep it off. And I love there's like, I forget what the line is specifically, but it's great where it says this, where it's like, we could see he was realizing that this was going to go all the way. And when I say that, I don't mean military discipline. I mean the consequences would be absolute. Basically, he was going to kill him. You know what I mean? Like, no problem. Like, and like the Green Beret backs off, and he's just like, yeah, go sleep it off. It wasn't our men. Go sleep it off.
And his eyes like that. Are very creepy in that too. In that panel,
it's the same eyes he gives for the heroin thing. You know what I mean? Just like that dead stare. Like just like the consequences would be absolute. Like
right.
No one was going to walk out of that fight.
And absolutely not. And he has no problem taking it to that because he has no middle at that time.
Yeah. Yep.
And then
go ahead.
Sister Lee and excuse me, there's an interrogation of sorry, Sister Lee and I keep saying the name wrong.
I think it's Jap, but we can call him Colonel.
They interrogate an American soldier, and this is where we kind of get more of the backstory of Sister Lee, and then also just you hear the sentiment of how America is feeling of the war at the time too.
Yeah.
He's like surprised. That's what he's asking more about. He's like more about what
like
Americans, right? And the soldier's just like, I'll tell you whatever. You don't have to beat me half to death. Like I'll tell you what's going on. These type of questions.
He folded like a chair.
Yeah, with no problem. And but then you hear then with that though you get the backstory of Sister Lee, and she like we said, her hate for the American soldiers is
totally justified. No, totally justified.
Yeah, unhinged Marines kind of go from each village, and it's kind of like a insurrection a little bit.
Yeah,
right. It's like and they take trophies from the kills, and her family is basically wiped out. And so
it's horrible. And again, there were war crimes on both sides. Not that justifies it's just like, it's like, yep, we did shitty shit, these guys did shitty shit, but anyway.
Yeah.
That all leads us into issue 5, which is kind of like the big climax of the book. The platoon has been sent out on a mission to go basically recover the remains of another platoon that went out there and got wiped out.
Right.
And of course they've been spotted by Lee, and she recognizes the big American, and she's like, excellent,
because they're in the middle of like this big ambush zone in
they know like this
swamp.
Is this is
the reason why these guys are all killed that we're trying to get right now. It was a big
the center of this field right here.
Right, there's a kill zone.
They knew what's up, and they're just like, cool, let's hightail it out of here and get some backup. And that's when their radio man, I believe it's Moland is his name, finds out the battery doesn't work, so he swaps out the other battery. That doesn't work, and they realize, oh, we are up as creek without a paddle.
Right. And the whole thing with the batteries too is like the supplier swaps them out with bad ones. Yeah, because bad ones, because he sells them to the BComp.
He was running scams, and they got effed by it. I do love though, he's like, that Mullen is like, I had enough of a charge. He's like, how are we going to get it? He's like, I got to go up high. And he's like, if you'd asked me like 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago that I was going to climb up a tree to get a signal, I was like, there's no way I would have done that. But Frank made them all want to do better for the platoon.
That's what I love too.
He inspired them to be better, and he climbs the tree and gets a signal out. Of course, by this point, the Viet Cong think they've got an entire squad of, they don't realize it's just like a small little platoon, even though it's this guy, but they're sending everybody. I mean, they send half a battalion of soldiers to take this group out. And that's on the word of Sister Lee, who's like, yep, there's a lot of soldiers there. We can go kill them. And they're just like, and Latrong, the colonel's like, what, you idiots? What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, this is not worth this.
Right. Because she's doing it for her revenge. And then she talks to like the colonel's like second in command or something, and he's like,
attendant or whatever.
What would he do? And then he comes back, it's like, you got scammed by Sister Lee just for this moment. This is crazy. We should have not have been going full force. And with that though, Sarge and Moland get wounded, and Frank and Kappa, the corpsman, go back to get them and are attacked by Lee, and he gets that stabbed in the back.
Yep, he gets stabbed in the back by Lee, jumps down out of a tree and gets him right in the back. I really I liked, again, like, it was that whole thing throughout this issue is like, people are getting wounded and getting it, like, again, he's like, keep them alive, keep the corpsman, I believe it's Kappa. He's like, keep him alive. It's like, he's like, I think he's dead. He's like, nope, they're not dead yet, man. And, and Frank, once he gets most of the squad to the landing zone, because they managed to like get a communication, like, go pick us up here. He realizes that both Sergeant Mullen is left behind, so he grabs the corpsman. He's like, we got to go rescue him. And then that's when they get the drop on him. You know what I mean? On the two of them.
It was a great final panel too, with her and the knife on his
just
shoulder,
stabbing him in the back. Yeah, it's really great. Which kind of leads us into issue 6, obviously.
The 6th and final issue, and it starts where we left off on issue 5 with Frank and Lai fighting while the U.S. planes are coming in to bomb just the hell out of the area. So they're trying to get out, but Sister Lai wants to take them out. So Frank is actually able to defeat Sister Lai when with what he kind of does, like a back like slam, like she's on his back, she's not getting off, so he does like a back slam on a rock. It kind of like paralyzes her, like breaks her
neck. Yeah, breaks her neck or her back or something like that.
And then he kind of finishes the job. And I guess when asked about the death, Sarge explains that it was just between them, like two warriors.
Yeah, and it was the thing. It was like, I think the writer of all this, who's interviewing the squad in present day,
in their bar,
in their bar, he's just like, so what was it? Was it like a mutual respect thing? Was it putting someone out of their misery? He's like, you know what, that was between them, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Which is great.
And that's kind of like, I think, where you see the birth of the Punisher a little bit more, where it's like, that's a kill that like stuck with him, where his vengeance came out, I think.
Yeah, it's like she transferred her vengeance, like the curse of the vengeance, to him.
I do think that that's kind of the big thing is and we talked about this earlier, Punisher versus her, like, her vengeance was personal. She couldn't let it go, and it clouded her vision. Whereas the Punisher rarely, at least in Garth Ennis's interpretation of the character, lets it get personal. And in fact, it's funny, in the comics, there's only one time he did let it get personal, and it effed him. And he realized that. He's like, I let myself get personal, and I shot. He's like, and it messed me up because of that. You know what I mean? Like, he's always been a man with a mission. Scan the area, figure out a plan, get in, get out, get gone. And Garth Ennis, I read an interview, or I was watching an interview with him, and he talked about that. He's like, Punisher's not going to come in screaming and shooting stuff. He's going to come in, analyze the area, figure out how he's going to do. He's going to do maximum amount of damage, and then leave. He's not sticking around to fight. He's methodical. And like you said, the few times he lets it get personal, that's when things go awry for him. And so it's just interesting, like the parallel between the two characters.
Yeah, but, the extremes too on both sides.
Yeah,
but with the same vengeance mission. It's just But so ultimately, though, he keeps his whole platoon alive, and they all live to become old and get out of Vietnam and just have the rest of their lives, basically.
Yeah, like a few of them, like you find out, like, like Sarge makes the joke, is like his guts were hanging out when he got hit by the grenade, and like, the Punisher but he had made Kappa, keep him alive until he get him fixed. He's like, yeah, I made it out with like 6 feet less of guts, but
right.
I mean, most of them, like one guy, I think they do like an addendum thing where it's like one guy signed up and he died in his second tour. Everyone else one guy died of cancer, but the rest of us all got to go have kids and all of that. It ends, with one of my favorite scenes in comics, and it's Mullen, the radio guy,
right?
When he and the Punisher, they got because they all get airlifted out, and they basically end up on an airbase, kind of getting fixed up. And I'm going to sort of read like what happens, because it's honestly one of my favorite moments. This is Mullen, the radio operator. The last time I saw him, I was being choppered out to this airstrip for a flight to Okinawa. He was still being treated, so he came along, didn't say much, just wanted to see me on the slick. I knew, and so at this point, you see him on the helicopter, and he's waving to Frank, and Frank's just staring at him. I knew he wouldn't wave back. All he would do is turn around and walk away from us, all I guess, without a backward glance, headed for everything that was waiting. All the same, I watched for him as long as I could, that little figure not moving once. Then the Huey dipped and we were gone, and that was the last I ever saw of him. Then the last page is a splash page of Frank waving.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that thing. It's like he couldn't let it be personal, but he did take it personal, but he had to hide that from them. It was his only way of keeping his men alive, was to keep it tight and tucked away, or else, it shows that he is like, there's that man underneath everything.
Totally.
I
And
love that.
I do too. And I love the just that he had to make sure that he was out and safe too before he could even just leave.
Wave.
He had to, he just had to make sure that the last man of his platoon made it out alive, type of thing.
Yeah. It's a war comic. It's not a Punisher comic. It's a war comic ultimately. And I love this version of the Punisher. I love this version of Frank Castle. And, I joked about it earlier. It's like I said, he could have been Captain America in another life. And there is a what if, like what if the Punisher became Captain America and all that. But like, this is like great. But what are your thoughts after kind of reading all of that? What was your take on all of it, Josh?
I know. I thought it was a great war book. It was surprisingly that this came from Garth Ennis. Yeah. When you see all this other work and you compare it to Bourne, which I read before, again, it's very different. It's a very different book than that. It's a very different Frank Castle, but in a good way. And it's a good book. It's an easy read. It's
quick.
It's quick. You could have the only thing that I can knock it down to is, we say it's a war book, it's not like a Frank, it's not a Punisher book or anything like that. So it could have been anybody.
Yeah.
So it could have been any other character, or it could have been its own book on itself. So I don't think it's really so much a Punisher book. Like we've been saying.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a Punisher book. It's a Frank Castle book because it's Frank Castle before he becomes the Punisher. But you could have this could have maybe taken place during World War II and been Steve Rogers before he became Cap or something like that.
Or what I mean? Anybody, or not that, or just some random person character. Guy. Yeah, it didn't need to be a Marvel book. It could have been something else.
Which I do hear that, but I do think that it does, if you put it in the context of the greater Punisher Max of it all, it does fit. It works really well. But again, you don't need to read all that to read this good book about this guy who did everything he could to keep his men alive.
I think really, as a book itself, it's great. As a Punisher book, it's good. But I think, like you said, I think you need to have the full box set to I think appreciate it more.
Yeah, I'm glad though there wasn't that scene though, because like they do this, like they keep in mind, like there was a comic in the 80s and 90s called The Nam. It was Marvel did it. And in it, it's like it's the Marvel version of Vietnam, and it's it's fictional characters and all that. But like in it, the Punisher shows up in it. Like Frank Castle is in that book as Frank Castle, and like he fights like this monkey sniper guy, and like who uses skulls, and at the end he like takes the skull emblem and he puts it on his chest and like all that. I was like, thank God they didn't do that kind of shit. Like they didn't do like a thing where it's like, you know what I mean?
I agree.
There's like the closest they do is like there's a shot, like one of the covers is like Punisher walking in front of a skull, and the skull just happens to be like kind of it's one of the variants where the skull would be on his chest, but it's just walking by a skull or something like that's on a pike. But I'm glad there wasn't that moment where he's like, oh, I'm gonna put on white glove or cover myself in red blood and and make a blood skull on my chest or whatever.
No, and I agree. And again, like I said earlier too, I like that there wasn't any wink, wink, nudge, nudge of any other characters. It's just, again, it's like it as a book like this. It's a great book. It's a great war book, but is it a great Punisher specific book? I mean, is it a great Punisher book because it's about Frank Castle, or is it just a great Punisher book? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think it's a great book, irregardless of the Frank Castle of all. I think if you put it in, I think if you put it in the greater context of the whole Punisher Max run that Garth Ennis, because like his Punisher Max run is about, I want to say it's 60 issues plus Bourne plus a few one shots here and there, so he did about 65 issues all told. And I think if you put that in there with it, it just adds more nuance and layers, like a little bit, not a lot, but enough that you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Especially when you do, like I said, Valley Forge, which is the last story that he did for free. I think because it's that same writer, Michael Goodwin, who's, you find out his brother, not Archie Goodwin, but his brother was served with Frank Castle in that last platoon, his last tour of duty in Bourne.
Gotcha.
It just adds a nice little bookend to it all. But to your point, you're right. You could just literally not know anything about the Punisher and just read this book and be like, oh, that was a cool war book. That's all I needed to know. You know what I mean?
I think it's a great book, but I think you get more of a appreciation for it if you have, like we said, like the whole Max box set of it. So I still would recommend it. I still give it 5 stars. It's just
yeah. No, you're offering criticism, and that's totally valid. You have an issue with it, I would say.
Yeah, right. That's what we got.
No, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I think I hate to say it, but I'm a little blinded by it, by my love of the book, that I'm just like, to me, it didn't do any wrong. But I do hear your concern, like, and it is absolutely valid. It's just, I'm like, I'm cool with it because, like I said, I love that world that Garth created with this character. And, you see in the Punisher book itself, you see him like, he still has some of his humanity left. You know what I mean? There's still like, he will not shoot on kids or women. And like, when he finds out, like, like there's these women that are being like enslaved as like prostitutes, he drops everything for it. And that's where he gets personal. That's where you see like that personal, he takes it personal, and he goes out of his way. So, I like that there is still some humanity in his character that, and you see like I said, you see it there too. So again, do you need it? No, but I love it. I love it.
Yeah, no, we are recommending this book, and we are saying it's part of, I think it's a good read. It's a must read. And I think if you want to get down to the deep depths of who the Punisher is, it's one of the must reads. But it's just something, if you want a one-off war book, if you're looking for like Vietnam War stuff, that's a book to read.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're recommending it. Let's talk about what other books, if you like this book, that you could recommend. Would you recommend Bourne?
Yes, and maybe just to keep going with the story, finishing the story how it is. It's even though it's the same era, same character, same writer, it's a stark contrast to what it is, what Platoon was.
Yeah, it's funny because, not only the artwork, I think, really helps differentiate it a little bit, but I do think, not only is it a different character because it's like, it's his first tour versus his third tour of duty, but like, it's a different writer. I mean, Garth wrote this Bourne at kind of like the beginning of the Punisher Max stuff, around that era when he was doing Punisher Max. This book came out almost a decade later. You know what I mean? So it's almost like two different writers writing the book in a weird way. Like, it's a much more mature Garth Ennis in this book. I do think you should read it. If you like this stuff, you should absolutely read Bourne. Read that into Punisher Max. Read, I would say, that all the Nick Fury stuff that goes along with it. It's My War Gone By. There's another, I think, miniseries that he did called Get Fury. And then there was the last one, I think it was Punisher Soviet. And it's a lot of the same artwork, same style. And like, it's all of this shared continuity. Again, like I said, it does change a little bit because other writers picked up the character afterwards. I think Jason Aaron did a run at the end and kind of kills the Punisher at the end of it. But, whatever. I mean, I don't think it takes away from how good this is. You know what I mean?
Is the Jason Aaron one where he becomes like Frankencastle?
No, that's Rick Remender's run, and that's in the that's in the actual Marvel comics.
Right.
And at one point, Punisher turns into Frankencastle, and that is a real thing.
In the actual Marvel comics, Frank has become Frankencastle. He became a weird version of Captain America. He had an Iron Man suit, and
the War Machine suit. And he also became an angel. He was also an angel,
and the Beast for the hand. So
the hand stuff, I'm not a fan of the stuff where it's like, oh, you go to his childhood, and his childhood he had these traumatic moments, and he's always been that dark.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, I like that there's a defining moment. It does. It's like there's a moment where, well, that's the other thing they revealed in that Punisher angel stuff. You find out that an angel like cause those mobsters to kill his family. So that I'm sure it was all retconned away, but like that's a thing.
For everybody listening, I gave the biggest eye roll right now because
which is funny. Yeah, just almost got stuck in the back of your head.
I know. I can only see the ceiling right now. What's going on?
I was going to say, I know we don't really recommend this, but I was going to say, if you really like this, Band of Brothers is another thing that you should, that fits with this, that camaraderie kind of thing. The show Band of Brothers.
Oh, the show Band of Brothers. I was like,
yes,
trying to think of the comics. It's like, Band of Brothers is one of my favorite shows of all time. That's
excellent.
Band of Brothers, and then the Pacific, and then Masters of Air. Yeah, those.
I haven't finished Masters of Air yet.
It's great. It's that same. It's if you like Band of Brothers, Pacific, you'll like Masters of Air. It's that trilogy basically.
Yeah, Band of Brothers is peak.
It is
Pacific's great too. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it has a little bit of that vibe going on with this.
Funny enough, John Bernthal was in the Pacific.
That's right, he was. That's right. The other thing I was going to say, recommend is also Garth Ennis. He does a bunch. He's done a ton of war comics. I mean, you just look up Garth Ennis war stories. I mean, he writes from like different perspectives, like from a German Panzer general, or tank commander. I mean, like, he writes from all different points of view, and they're really interesting takes, and they're a lot of fun. A lot of fun. But he's written, so check him out. With that said, it sounds like we're recommending the book. Here's some recommendations. What is your weekly recommendation this week, Josh?
So I think the book that I'm going to recommend is Battle Beast, which is a quick mini spinoff from Invincible, and which is funny because Invincible has been done for a while, and now this one has just come out pretty recently, and it's about Battle Beast, and it starts right after his first fight with Mark. With the what's that mobster's guy's name? The robot mobster or whatever. Well, basically, the first time he wipes the floor with Mark, and then he goes off, and he's trying to find basically better battles. And he goes, I think the latest issue, he's in this gladiator Coliseum type stuff. So it's really good. Style. Yeah, exactly. And it's Otley back on the pencils, and Robert Kirkman back on them typewriter. So it's, if you liked Invincible and you need something to kind of get you to the next season of Invincible and the show, check out Battle Beast.
I was gonna say, I like the first issue a lot. It seems like Kirkman is going back to the page again. Like he said, he's been doing a lot of TV writing and stuff like that, but because he's doing Void Rivals, but now, wasn't it just announced he's going to be doing Transformers now? He's picking that book up.
Yes, it's Transformers Dan Mora, which is crazy amazing. Like, how can you plus the Transformers book right now? And that's,
I was going to say, I love Daniel Warren Johnson. Like, I'm kind of sad to see him go, but I'm like, well,
see what's hell of a replacement.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you're going to do it, that's the way to go. Cool.
What about you, Brian?
Cool. I can't say I'm going to recommend this, but I am going to read it. I just picked up the hardcover collection of all of Doom 2099 and Fantastic Four 2099. Basically, it's all the Doom 2099 stuff. It's like 1,500 pages. I don't know how I'm going to time to read it, but I got it, and I can't wait to read it because it's 90s 2099. It's going to be good or bad.
Oh, man.
I can't wait, though.
Those covers are the best, the shiny covers. I have the Miguel Herrera first one.
It's the only one I don't have. It's the Spider-Man one. I have Ghost Rider, Ravage, Punisher, Doom. I have Hulk, and I have X-Nation, which is one of the ones that is not that, actually. The other one I had, but I don't know where the hell I lost it, is X-Men 2099. So I guess the two I'm missing is Spider-Man and X-Men. I guess I have to find those, but I digress.
Out on the search. And speaking of Fantastic Four, too, do you know the Baxter Building is on Zillow right now? It's like a promotion for the movie. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
It's for like $4,444,444. Yeah, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, all that stuff. Yeah, it's all the fours.
Great. Love it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, on that note.
Yeah, on that note, if you want to go check it out on Zillow, check that out, and also make sure to subscribe to the podcast.
Check us out.
Check us out. We're on Spotify. So if you're not, I'm going to list all the places we're at. If
Well, hopefully they're already listening to us.
That's what I'm saying. So if you're listening on one, you can check us out on the other ones too. So there's Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and right now where you can hit us up on Instagram. You can hit us up on Blue Sky. I think it's We Got Issues Cast on Instagram. We Got Issues Cast on Instagram, and then We Got Issues on Blue Sky, and the BComp on
the BComp,
Blue Sky. Yeah. And also, if you like this episode, rate us them 5 stars. That's all we want. We want them 5 stars, some comments, them recommendations. We want to spread out to all the comic fandom. It's kind of like a weird kind of promotion, but to say, well, I don't know where I'm going with this tangent, but just tell everybody, tell your friends, tell your friends' friends, tell your friends' parents. Let people know. Let people know the gospel of the We Got Issues. That's horrible to say. Never. But
I'm gonna pick it up from here, Josh.
Yeah, please. I'm just rambling.
If you have anything you want us to chat about, please hit up us on the aforementioned social medias or in person, as I've actually run into people in person. Next episode, we are going to have a guest. I hope.
We're going to have our first guest.
Gene Versa from over at the Waffle Podcast, the Waffle Press. Thank you. Yeah. We've done a couple shows with him on like Thunderbolts, and I believe what else did we do? Thunderbolts.
We did the Penguin and Thunderbolts on Serving Up Comics. Right. They're
Serving Up Comics. Thank you.
Yeah, comic episodes there.
So I've been in light communication with them. I was supposed to send him an email confirming the date, so that's on me. For some reason that falls apart. You can blame this guy, but anyway, we should be in the next episode having him on, and we're going to be talking about Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm actually really excited about that.
Specifically, the Hickman Ultimate Spider-Man, because I don't think there's enough time to do the Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man.
Well, to be fair, those issues do read really quick when he's not just doing pages of dialogue.
And to be fair, there's like over 100 pages. So,
there's that. There's a lot.
But I'm excited to have our first guest on our podcast. It's been crazy.
That'll be fun.
That we never thought we'd have a sponsor. Never thought we'd have a theme song. Now we have a guest. That's pretty nuts.
Well, we're gonna have some other guests after that, like I said.
For sure. This is this opens the floodgates, but that's fun. I'm glad Gene is going to be able to come on, because we had a lot of fun on his show, so might as well have him come into our arena of craziness over here.
Be good.
Awesome. So,
all right.
Thanks again for everybody for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
Peace.